Hello, it's Paula. This is the Common Book Show, and we're here today with Richard and James and Paul Dragem over there in Canada. And we are about to start. I have one thing that I want to read to begin. I'm still reading this book of Ibsen plays from the 19th century.
What's the name of this particular play?
This particular one is Pillars of Society.
Pillars of Society.
And this, I just thought this was interesting because you know how we're always talking about how people are going to lose their employment because of technology?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found this interesting because this is from the 19th century, and it's when machines were first being utilized. And it's a conversation between two men about how many people will lose their jobs because of this machinery. So I just thought this was interesting. So
It's
this
true.
character called, I think it's Un. I welcome progress too, Mr. Bernick. Mr. Bernick. Yes, for your own limited circle, for the working class. Oh, I know what a busy agitator you are. You make speeches, you stir people up, but when some concrete instance of progress presents itself, as now in the case of our machines, you do not want to have anything to do with it. You are afraid. Un. Yes, I really am afraid, Mr. Bernick. I'm afraid for the number of men who will have their bread taken out of their mouths by these machines. You are very fond, sir, of talking about the consideration we owe to the community. It seems to me, however, that the community has its duties too. Why should science and capital venture to introduce these new discoveries into labor before the community has had time to educate a generation up to using them? Mr. Bernick, you read and think too much, Un. It does you no good, and that is what makes you dissatisfied with your lot. Un. It is not, Mr. Bernick, but I cannot bear to see one good workman dismissed after another, to starve because of these machines. Bernick. When the art of printing was discovered, many a quill driver was reduced to starvation. Un. Would you have admired the art so greatly if you had been a quill driver in those days, sir? So the conversation between labor and management, it's been going on since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm. Beginning of capitalism, yeah.
Since the beginning of, and this is when capitalism really surged during the Industrial Revolution. I just thought that was interesting. It's taking me, I only read about 3 pages a night because some of it's dense. And I just want to have the satisfaction of having read it. It's not, I mean, there are parts that I am enjoying, but most of it is a little dense. Anyway, that's my contribution, and
I like how you tied in the labor management thing to the historical circumstances.
well, that's why it struck me that it's something I might want to mention on the show, because now with AI, we're talking about that, like it's going to just, everyone's going to be out of work, and during the Industrial Revolution it was the same, but people are displaced, and those people now have to be retrained. Hopefully now with I don't know what's going to happen with the energy thing. I mean, Biden did create all these new jobs for clean energy.
Yeah.
And I'm just hoping that it takes, who knows what's going to happen with the way our politics are going.
And the reason that's important is because we just got out of April,
Yeah.
the warmest April in the history of weather keeping.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, we got out of March, the warmest March in the history of weather keeping.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back 9 months, each month is the warmest in the history.
Yeah.
Not here.
Well, is it not
Look at the average temperature.
warmer than
yeah.
average?
Well, it's the average global temperature.
Oh, it's global. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's climate does change. I mean, I watched that series on Netflix, which was fascinating. I don't. I think it was called. It talked about the creation of the Earth and all the epochs where temperature changed drastically and there was a die out of life, and then the life came back. And in some cases, it took 6 million years for life to come back to the planet after the die out.
Wow.
You know, so it was a really interesting. So there are changes in the world that come about naturally, but this time the scientists are convinced that our climate is changing because of the gases that we're putting into the air. I mean, we're going to use everything up and create.
Well, you think about it too. Now you got 8 billion people on the planet compared to 50 years ago, where you had like what 1.2 or something like that.
Well, if I was I mean, I'd kill off all the
You
people.
got 8 times more
If I
people
was
on the planet.
If I was the planet and I had control, I mean, I would kill off all the people. The people are the ones that are. I think,
Well, it's okay. So the population has increased by 8 times or
Yeah.
6 times, and so now you have 6 times more people breathing carbon monoxide into carbon. You know,
right, but wouldn't it be? I mean, it would be very interesting to see what would happen if we did create a die-off again, and the people all went, and to see what would happen to the planet. I mean, of course, we're not going to be able to do that. Like the next, like
genocide.
What would
Is that what you want? Genocide to happen?
what would happen after that die-off? I mean, look at what I'm saying,
Well,
Paul, is the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs were all destroyed in one fell swoop. Okay, that was it. They were gone.
Yeah,
But
right.
then after millions of years, the smaller creatures started growing into, you know, the evolution happened,
Right.
and we had these other creatures. But it would be interesting to see if man would evolve out of mammals
Man,
again.
the human race is going to die out anyhow. So it's just a matter of time, and so you know so what happens is, as everything evolves, the human race is just going to just disappear, and then what's going to be left will be, they say, spiders and rodents. That's it.
Yeah, we don't know for sure what's going to happen, but I think it would just be a fascinating thing to be able to see if
Sure would be.
if it happens, if we're all gone, what the Earth would look like after those
It'd
millions
probably
of
look a lot
years.
nicer.
Oh yeah,
No pollution.
Yeah.
Well, you got to think about it. So there would be no manufacturing of anything. It would just be natural things happening, and there would be no pollution, and because the human race creates all this, all
right.
this pollution.
But there were climate die-offs before humans.
Oh, absolutely.
Several.
So no matter what we do to the planet now, the planet will always survive. We won't, but the planet will. So it'll whatever we do to it, it will regenerate. It'll either turn into something else, or
isn't that fascinating? That
It is.
This is the planet. I mean, there's got to be other planets that are similar. Because,
Well, I believe so.
Because in
Our
the universe,
galaxies.
why would this be the only planet?
No,
I
we
heard
would.
a good counter argument to that.
Okay.
Somebody said that there's over 1 trillion galaxies.
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Now, we live in one.
Right.
So if there's 1 trillion of them, what are the odds that another galaxy had the conditions on one of its planets to enable life?
1 trillion.
as we know it.
So here is the counter argument. Imagine you had 1 trillion pencils all sharpened, right? And you put them on the table 1 trillion times. What are the odds that one of the pencils would just remain upright, standing on its point?
Well, that's an interesting.
That's a calculated thing. I guess you could.
And James just said something that is interesting, because I just found, now we don't know. The Big Bang theory is a theory. We don't know if that's what actually happened. But if the Big Bang theory is the truth, if it can be proven, like I don't know how we prove it, but the Big Bang Theory, it can't be just life as we know it. It's got to be life as it exists here, because it's the exact same stuff that it's made of. All of the universe, all the planets, all of the like Milky Way, what is it? Galaxies are all made of the same things. So that would have to be the same kind of life to sustain if it's made of the same stuff.
Yeah, the key word is if it's made
It's
of the
if.
same stuff.
I know, if, but that's what I'm saying. I was always arguing the same point, James, as you just said. As we know it, it might be some other kind of life, but when that was an interesting idea or thought for me, that yes.
Well, there could be life that's, we breathe oxygen. They might breathe chlorine gas. Who knows? You don't know.
Yeah, that's but they would need the same things. They would need
I don't know.
water.
I mean,
they would need the same things to survive if it's made of the same stuff. But we don't know. Maybe there were 7 Big Bangs that happened and they all exploded at the same time.
Or the
and
Big
they're
Bang
all
just happened.
different.
You mean
And it
that
just
would make
happened in this
7
galaxy.
7 universes?
Well, right, but we don't know. I mean, we're limited in our understanding of what's out there. We
and
don't
then the
have,
black holes and all that
we
stuff.
don't have all that information, which is really exciting. To me, it's not scary that we don't know. It's exciting that we don't know, because it might be something we can know before we kill ourselves off. But
Well, the human race will kill itself off. It's just a matter. It's just time.
yeah, it's
It will cease to exist.
yeah, I believe that.
Do you believe that, James? The human race will kill itself off?
I don't know if it will succeed, but it certainly continues to try.
Yeah, that's
Well,
that's for sure.
even if it doesn't,
I have a different
think
opinion on that.
a catastrophe will happen that will
Do
kill
you
off the
think-
human race.
Do you think that the human beings are going to survive?
I'm a firm believer that that the future is something we create, not something that's going to happen.
Okay, but there's a lot of people working against your theory. So
I didn't say it'd be easy.
So do you think that there'll be people will be spared from, because there's so much crazy out there. There's so many people who don't want to see that we're destroying it. And they don't even care if we're destroying it, because they're thinking I'll be dead by then anyway, or this might be the end of the world through like the religious idea of the
Yeah.
end of the world, and this is the way it's supposed to happen. So why not, use our gas cars and use our factories and all this stuff. I mean, there's so many people that think like that.
Well, there's an expression, you can't stop an idea whose time has come.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the college protests.
Mm-hmm.
It started on one campus, and now it's all over the whole world.
Yeah, that's true. You're right about that.
There's a
But-
thing about people saying, well, look what they did. If they did it, I can do it.
Yeah, and I remember taking part in the demonstrations against the Vietnam War, and even at that young, tender age, I realized at some point that it wasn't doing very much good. That people were getting hit over the head and hurt and dragged to jail. I mean, it did. The war eventually ended, but I don't think that the demonstrations. I mean, they were the people that demonstrated, like myself, were considered to be anti-American.
So you don't think the protests played a part in ending the war?
Small.
Because if you look at the history books and the people who were in the White House, Nixon was always saying, what are they demonstrating about now? How many people are out there?
Mm-hmm.
He was very concerned.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that Biden,
Yeah.
who said, the protests have zero influence on my decision making. Oh, by the way, Israel, we're not giving you any more weapons to drop on Rafah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There is some. I'm not without hope, Richard. It's just that I might be less idealistic than you, because I kind of see the dark side of humanity as winning most of the time.
Oh, hey, that's an interesting thing. The dark side of humanity as a woman.
No, not. I didn't say as a woman. I said as winning.
Oh, winning.
Yeah.
Oh, the dark side is winning.
Yeah, the dark sides, and I'm not, like I said, I haven't given up. It doesn't change the way I live, but
I think I would translate what you're saying in the following way. Based on the media that you consume, you see the dark side meaning winning.
perhaps, yeah, perhaps. I don't consume a lot of media, but I do. For instance, I took a drive with my friend Lorraine today. We went to a couple garage sales. All right, it's kind of a nice thing to do on a nice day. And as we got farther into North Tonawanda, I saw more and more Trump signs.
That's
And-
media.
And
yeah.
that's media, but it's also a person expressing their ideas that
Yes.
lives in that house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those persons' ideas, of course, are formed by the media that they're watching.
Yeah.
But I look and I say, how can that person with good conscience support someone
Yeah.
like Donald Trump?
Yeah.
And they're
Wait,
probably
what-
good people that live there.
What's your answer to that?
It's their media they're consuming, and they're not.
I mean,
and
what do you
they're-
think their
and fear.
reasoning is
They're-
if you look underneath the hood?
They're afraid of change.
Oh.
You know, you have to embrace impermanence because everything changes.
Yeah.
Nothing is without change.
Yeah.
So they're afraid of the unknown, and a lot of what these people, a lot of the world to them is unknown because most of the time they're undereducated, and they've lived very small lives.
Planet's constantly changing.
And but right, so they're scared. That fear is a great motivator, and that's why Trump uses it so much.
Mm.
Here's a little trivia for you. So, did you know the planet weighs 40,000 tons every year? It gains 40,000 tons.
Where does it get the extra weight from?
Space debris.
Wow.
It hits the Earth, falls from space, hits the Earth, and it collects 40,000 tons every year. And you can do an experiment. You can take your bed sheet, your white bed sheet, put it out on your lawn, let it sit there for a whole day, and then take a magnet and run it over that, and you'll see all little metal specks that'll stick to the magnet.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Because a lot of meteorite stuff is metallic. And
But is
that's-
it meteorite stuff or is it space junk?
Well, it's space meteorites. It's all the dust and all the planets that have exploded and meteorites and all that stuff. It's all
What-
space
Because
debris.
there's a lot of space junk up there too, and that isn't that.
Well,
burning
absolutely,
up?
and that's falling to Earth
Yeah.
too. That burns up
Yeah.
as it comes back into the atmosphere. Because if it didn't, you'd have a lot of stuff raining down on people's houses and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to find. I mean, the Earth gains that much weight every year.
There's a song lyric that's I'm not able to put my finger on right now. That the earth groaning under the weight. I think it was a Joni Mitchell lyric. I can't remember what it was. Okay, so let's move on to Richard's list.
I want to bring up a topic that I'm sure James is familiar with.
Okay.
The man versus bear conversation.
Oh,
Are you familiar with it, James?
But of course.
And what is your interpretation, so you can fill in the listeners, of the man versus bear discussion?
Well, I wouldn't go directly to an interpretation. It's more, you have to start with an explanation, which is, I don't know who or why, but someone asked the question, what would you rather encounter if you were on a walk in the woods? A random man or a bear? Which I guess we have to say random bear.
Bear.
of
I would
course,
say
it would be a
because,
random
you know,
bear. Hey,
There's the bear that you met at the circus. So the question was, if you were walking through the woods alone, which would you rather encounter, a random man or a random bear? And the overwhelming majority of women said the bear. And
Right.
when asked to explain, the general consensus sounded something like, well, you don't know what the man will do to you.
Yeah, you can prepare yourself for a bear because you understand a bear's behavior.
And his motivations.
Whereas with a man, there's more unpredictability involved.
Well, I would be, if I was out for a walk alone in a national park, and I was alone, and I saw a man. Well, but the thing is, there's hikers. You know, the other hikers. There's other people hiking alone. But you know what? There's been instances like at Stiglmeyer Park even where they tell women not to walk alone because there have been rapes in Stiglmeyer Park. You know, crazies know where to hang out. Not all men are crazies, and so
Women too.
well, yeah, there's crazy women, but I'm talking about
But not all women are like that.
But no, I mean not all men are crazy. But the thing is, you don't know with a bear. I'm not going to romanticize. The bear's hungry. Your lunch. You know, you can survive. I mean, it's terrible. I'm going to say this, and it's a horrible thing to say. You can physically survive a rape. You can't physically survive being eaten.
Exactly.
But I think, you know, I think that the women are
Well, how did rape come into play here? It
because
didn't-
that's why they're afraid of the man. They're afraid of the man because they're alone in the woods.
But I don't think there was a gender involved when this was. It said a person.
No,
or
it said a
man.
man.
No,
It said a
it
man.
was-
Yeah, but it didn't say it was a woman walking.
If you look at the survey,
Yeah, it's all women being asked.
the majority of women answered one way, the majority of men answered another way.
Oh, so men were asked as well?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and the men, of course, said a
The
man.
woman, by all means, I
woman,
want
yeah.
the woman.
Oh, a woman or
Which
a bear.
shows you how different the genders perceive what is threatening.
Well, the thing is, we've talked about this before. You know, the fact now that I am an older woman and I have freedom of movement. When I was a younger woman, I would be fearful to walk past a group of men if I was in a sketchy area, and I would try to either.
I would be too, whether I was a
Well,
woman or
not. I
not.
mean, not. I mean, let's say you're out at a bar and you park your car someplace that's kind of isolated.
Right.
I had a guy one time when I was 18. I remember I was 18 because it was my 18th birthday, and I decided that I was old enough, instead of drinking wine or beer, that I should drink Southern Comfort.
There you go.
And I was drinking Southern Comfort in this bar, and this guy came in, and he proceeded to drag me out of the bar, and he told the bouncer that I was his sister, and that he was taking me home because I was drunk, and I never saw this man before, and he was dragging me out, and there was a policeman outside, and I said, "Look at his license and look at mine." I said, "He is not my brother. He was trying to drag me to his car. I was really drunk." And so, you know, I mean, these kinds of things. This is not. You know, unfortunately, I wish it wasn't like this. I mean, most of the men I meet have not tried to, you know, harass me or anything, but there have been enough circumstances in my life where I might be afraid to see a man alone in the woods, and not that I would pick the bear.
Well, this is the point that men are saying that this is ridiculous because the number of men who would do you harm, statistically speaking, is relatively small. The number of bears who would do you harm is relatively high.
Yes, I think. Yes, I agree with you. I don't think I mean, although I'd like to romanticize the notion and say I could convince the bear that I was.
Yeah, right. Just
I've seen enough Disney movies where this might be in a part of my brain that's not thinking logically. But I think I would definitely pick the guy.
I posted a thing which I'm sure Facebook will be deleting within the next week or month, where this woman sees a bear cub and she thinks, "Oh, he's so cute.
Oh,
Get the
no.
picture, get the picture." So her friend is taking video of her. She scoops up this bear and she's holding it real close to get their picture of me in the woods with a bear.
And the mommy bear comes around.
Thankfully, no. However, the baby bear is cuddled up with her, takes a little sniff on her chin, licks her, and then sinks his teeth into her chin.
Perfect.
Well, it's an animal. It's a wild animal. You know?
And your lunch.
Exactly. Oh, won't mother be proud that I've caught one of these?
I'll drag it home for everybody. I'm a big boy now.
I have very much respect for animals in the wild. I do not try to approach them. I've seen, there was that Grizzly Adams or whatever. There was some
Yes.
kind of thing where the guy was out there with the bears and the bears finally ate him. Like I said, this guy's been hanging around too long. He's, So, yeah, no, I don't trust wild animals. Yeah,
You don't know how many of my feminist friends have been writing screeds and screeds of stuff to talk about how.
Would you trust that cute seal?
I would actually. That's a very cute seal. Do you know though? I did have a 250-pound brown bear sit on me one time. It didn't have
What?
any teeth or any nails. It was at
What
a
a-
it was at a roadside zoo. Used to be in the circus, and and he was a rescue bear. And every day I would go to this roadside zoo in Canada, where you are, and I would hitchhike from Toronto to Barrie, and I would they would let me in for free because I was part of the show, and
Okay.
the bear one time I had not brought his marshmallows. I used to bring him a bag of marshmallows because he didn't have teeth, right?
Right.
And I wasn't there in time for him to get his marshmallows before he came out of the cage. So he was out of the cage when I got there, and he
Gum you to
came
death.
lumbering over to me and knocked me down and sat on me and took the marshmallows. And the zookeeper asked me if I would do that every day, and I said that would be a resounding no. I said yes. It was very amusing for the people that saw. I said, I was probably 115 pounds at the time. I says no, there will not be any more of this. But yeah, so I have had contact with a bear, but it had no teeth and no claws.
Luckily for you.
Well, I
Yeah.
knew that. I knew that because I knew that it was not a random bear. His
He
name
would have
was
chomped you like a marshmallow.
his name was Boxer, and he was not a random bear. I knew him personally.
Crazy.
Crazy is right. So,
Here, you can
So,
meet this guy in the woods.
did we? Okay, so we went over that bear and man thing. I mean, how did you feel about that? Did you think the women were being irrational?
I thought it was a good indication of the difference between the way women perceive the unknown other and the way men perceive the unknown other.
Yeah, it probably is, and like I said, there's, and there you're right, James. I'm with you on this. It's not the majority of men who are going to be a problem, but I think it's just the women have this idea in their head. If it is one of these people, it's going to be painful, a painful experience. But being eaten by a bear, I think, would be more painful.
What I find interesting is that the same women who will say that random man could be someone to hurt me, so even if that's a small possibility, you can't say anything about me playing the statistics to say I don't want anyone to hurt me. These are the same women who will say, yeah, but you shouldn't look for a prenup. And yeah, you should still mentor women even though people are allowed to make claims without any evidence. And you should still trust any woman because the number of women who are bad is only 2%.
Well, there's bad people. There's bad people of every sex.
I understand that, and I agree with you. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I find the logic, the disconnect here very interesting because the female logic here is because there are men who are bad.
Yeah.
You shouldn't say anything about me painting all men with a wide brush. And then when men say, I could lose my entire life based on the whim of a woman, so I'm going to avoid them. Wait a minute. Not all women are like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know. There's a definitely you're never going to find. There's some people who are well balanced. There's some people who are, James.
I'm not saying there aren't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's interesting how it is culturally encouraged to say that women are okay if they treat the majority of men based on the number of psychos. But if men say, I'm going to build my life around protecting myself from the 2%
Right,
allegedly of women who are psychos, then he's somehow.
But in both circumstances, you're limiting your experience with all people.
I get that,
by
but what I'm
limiting
saying
your
is
experience with because something might happen. That you have to have an open mind in order to have experiences that
I'm
are
not
going
making
to
a value judgment on either. I'm saying it's interesting how the culture says one is acceptable
Yeah.
and the other one has to
Well,
abandon that ethic.
Yeah, I don't know that it's all culture. I think it's what you've been, the media you've been. I don't know. I tend to stay away from those things. But all right, so let's get off of this topic and onto something else. Do you have another thing that you want to talk about?
I do. A museum in Europe was planning to have a new art opening.
Mm-hmm.
It's a prestigious museum.
Mm-hmm.
So you have,
Is it 1040 or 1140?
painting, and you have a space in the wall and another painting.
Yeah.
Another space. And the custodian, who happens to be a painter in his spare time, noticed that when they hung the show, they left a lot of space at the end to the doorway.
Yeah.
So what he did is, after hours, he knew that tomorrow was the day of the big show. He hung up his painting in the space before the door.
Yeah.
The museum fired him. Do you think that was the right thing to do?
No, I don't think he should have been fired for that. I think he took a lot. He took it upon himself to include himself in this show, which was probably a juried show or something special. But I don't think he should have been fired. I think that they didn't have a very
What would have been a better solution?
to have a conversation. Like, this is, we can't, although I understand why you'd want to do this, this is not something we can do. That's about it. The being fired, that seems, don't you think that seems severe, Richard?
I do.
Yeah.
I do think it was severe. I heard a good alternative.
Mm-hmm.
The museum says to the guy, okay, we know you really want to have your work hung up in this museum, but you picked the wrong day to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to set aside 1 week every month. We're going to invite the whole public to come and hang their own artworks, and that will be the show.
Well, that would be a very rare kind of museum.
Similar to a
Yeah.
poetry open mic night.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I would find it difficult to believe that they would do that because there's a lot of what do you call it? Hoity-toityness in most art circles that would not allow for somebody to bring their paint by numbers and hang it in their hollowed walls. That would surprise me. It's just like Buffalo now. It used to be a community-based organization for writers, and now it's all about famous writers and
Who aren't from Buffalo.
who aren't from Buffalo. Exactly. So it's not just
And
Buffalo.
they've kept the name, James.
Yeah. So, and that's become really hoity-toity. So gone are the days when you would have these wonderful poetry readings of all these local writers who would come in and do open readings, and then somebody that was running, who was it? Ed Taylor. Ed Taylor, when he was running it, he would listen to some of the open readers, and he'd like them, and he'd invite them to be, and they'd get paid like $40, which was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to pay me to read poetry? This is amazing. That was more egalitarian. Now it's not like that. But I can't see a museum being that socialist. It would be a fun museum to run, though, wouldn't it? Just come and hang up one of your paintings.
Yeah. Well, what would you do, James? Do you think that the museum did the right thing in firing the guy?
What's the difference between what he did and an employee stealing something from the store?
Ooh, this is an interesting point of view.
Why would it be? He didn't steal anything.
He stole what, people's eyeballs looking at the painting?
Let's say he was successful. He hung his painting, and the next day, people came in for the official show. And let's say he gets away with doing this for the entirety of the show.
Yeah.
There are many people who have seen this painting hanging in the walls of the whatever gallery. Let's say it's the Louvre.
Yeah.
And there's people who've taken pictures of the painting hanging on the wall of the Louvre.
Yeah.
Now, he can sell this painting as a painting that has been in the Louvre collection. And that is stealing.
So he stole
Stealing in the limelight.
credibility, of the museum.
He can now sell that painting for more than what he could have had he not done that.
That's an interesting point. But the fact that they found it and they took it off the wall immediately.
The fact that the security guard caught you before you got to your car.
You're such a, you always have the most aggravating.
I love you too, Paula.
I mean, it's interesting concept, but I still feel, all right, so you think that somebody, yes, they're taking advantage of the space, but I don't see it as, I really don't see it as much of a crime or whatever is stealing something.
I'm not saying that I personally would have fired him, but I do understand the logic of firing him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he went against the organization's rules, but I think that sometimes rules can be a little stringent when it this guy was using his ingenuity,
But again, what was he getting out of it?
He got to see people look at he thought he was going to get to see people admiring his painting.
Alongside the works of the great masters.
Yeah. But he didn't take anything from those great masters. Those great masters are all dead.
Again, it gives his painting more credibility than it would have had otherwise.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. But I still, if it were me, I would not have fired him. I would have had a talk with him.
It's like a 2-year-old doing a drawing with a crayon and putting it up on the board with all this prestigious artwork.
Well, depending on which wing of the gallery you put it in, it'll be right alongside things that will be right in that zone.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So that would definitely raise the value of said piece of art.
What's the guy, Jackson Pollock, who does those squiggle?
Oh, the
Paintings.
splash painting?
Yeah.
I
A lot of talent there.
I think I have the perfect illustration of what you're saying,
Okay.
Paul, and I think I'll put it up on the screen. I was shocked when I discovered that this painting sold for $2 million.
Whose painting is it?
Cy
I'm shocked when any
Twombly.
painting is sold
Oh,
for two.
Trombley, yeah.
$2
Well, he's
million.
a famous.
So this is an example. I'll put it up on the big screen. Open image and new tab. So this is a Cy Twombly painting that sold for $2 million.
Something your 2-year-old would have done.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't that seem to be a good counterpart to what you're saying,
Yeah,
Paul?
it looks like it does look like a scribble. Like like let's test out this color red and see how it looks on this yellow.
It's just total. People are they paying for it because it's the artist?
Of
or is
course,
it-
yeah, of course.
But I mean, it's so it's just nothingness. It's just a scribble. It doesn't represent anything. It's just.
Well, the non-representational.
How do you relate to it? So how do you
representational art's been popular for a long time.
No, I get it, but how do you relate to that? It's like when you look at it, it's, oh, geez, fantastic artwork. What a genius!
Here's another Cy Twombly painting.
another one. Yeah.
They had
This
to.
looks like when we were kids and we practiced on a blackboard making letters.
Yeah.
It is on a
Right.
blackboard,
Yeah.
but
It's beyond me. I that's just.
well, it seems like there was a point in the history of art where it went from what you see to what it symbolizes.
Right. So in representational art, it started changing with impressionism, right? It's like pointillism, you're seeing something that's made out of little dots instead of and then into surrealism, but then into Dada, and then into I mean, I don't really, my favorite art is not non-representational art. I don't really, it's not something I care about, but I do know people who they like it,
I'm going to dip my dog's paws in paint and have it walk across the canvas and call it something, and,
Well,
and it'll be worth millions, right?
Well, like what's I can't think of his name. The guy that did the Campbell soup.
Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
Andy Warhol, I read in something that he had taken his dog's poop
Mm-hmm.
and smeared it
Wonderful.
on canvas, and he was
Yeah.
selling it. He had a place out in the Hamptons, and he was selling it out front, like
Mhm.
like a lemonade stand, and people
That's
were
what you
buying
call
it.
really shitty art.
Did he at least
Yeah.
spray it with sealer?
I don't know exactly the technique he used, but I mean, I think his art's really interesting, but something like that's Dada, as far as I'm concerned, which is anti-art, right? But I don't know. I don't have an appreciation. It doesn't speak to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like selling pet rocks.
Well, that was
That's another
that was an
brain-
idea. It was a
Right.
brainstorm.
That was
Yeah.
that was one smart person. Let's go get all the free rocks I can gather up on the beach, paint something, and call it a pet rock.
But they
give
also
it a push
they,
certificate.
they had right. They had instructions, and they had a care manual.
Yeah, I know.
The
It's
whole- the whole thing,
insanity.
but
I
yeah,
was
they
so
made-
Stylized
freaking-
box.
They made a lot of money
stupid.
on that. That was a like the hula hoop. It was a fad.
Well, the hula hoop. I mean, that's still around. I mean, that was at least
Right.
you got some kind of enjoyment out of it. Well, how much enjoyment do you get out of a
There's
rock?
certainly a purpose to the hula hoop. But
Yeah. But a rock, really? I mean, paint a couple eyeballs on it and a face.
I don't
and
even
say,
think
"Hey,
they had. I don't think they were even animated, were they? They were just rocks. There was no eyes or
No,
I
they weren't
don't
painted
know. I mean,
on.
there was
Not-
all
Not at
different
all.
versions, I guess, of it. But,
yeah. From what I remember, it was just a rock in a box with instructions.
Oh, Paul was telling me
A
that
genius.
there's this one park in Canada where people don't they paint on rocks and leave them in a path? You have a picture of it? Like when you go to this park, you're supposed to bring with you a rock that you painted your name or your face or whatever, and you put
Right.
it on the rock path.
Yeah.
And this path's gotten pretty big, hasn't it, Paul?
it's got to be 1,000 feet long.
Wow. There was a fad for a while where people were painting rocks and leaving them at random places.
So if you look at it, at the very
Yeah,
beginning
see,
of the
it's a
photo,
straight line.
Yeah.
there's a face, and that's the head of the snake, and it goes all the way back as far as you can see. And people paint different things on there, different sayings, whatever. But this
Yeah.
says, "Add to the snake," and there's a sign. I didn't take a picture of the sign itself, but there's a sign that's midway down. It says, "Paint a rock and leave it, and add to the snake," and that's what people do.
It's an interesting concept for art, an
Yeah.
art piece. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the kind of art where the public is invited.
Yeah. To participate.
Right.
Ah,
But you probably have noticed, though, as you walking through the parks or trails and stuff, that people leave rocks with sayings on it.
yeah, they had
Or-
that's been a thing for a while where people
Yeah.
will do these. I forgot.
It's
what
kind of
they're
the same
called.
thing.
I forgot what
Yeah.
they're called. There was a name for them, and somebody gave me one of these rocks, and I was supposed to place it someplace, and I think I still have it.
Right.
I liked it. So I'm,
Well, you see a lot of those in Rhinestein Woods over there. There's a lot
yeah,
of those rocks.
yeah. I haven't
Have you ever
noticed
seen
that.
a painted rock at Rhinestein?
I haven't, but it's been a while
I
since
have.
I've been. It's I can stay on my feet for. I don't think I could walk. There's a route that I like to take at Rhinestein Woods where it takes me an hour to walk. It would. I know I couldn't do it. And if I would go to the park to walk, I would have to go with somebody else. We have to have two cars so I could get into the car at the end of the trail because I can't do a loop anymore right now until
Yeah.
my ankles are better.
Okay,
Well,
speaking of
interesting.
art,
Okay.
Apple has a brand new
Oh,
iPad.
yeah.
They hired they have an in-house advertising
Yeah.
agency. They decided to go with this one particular ad.
Yeah.
Have either of you
I
heard about it?
saw it on one of the late night talk shows. They talked about it, and
Well, let's show it to Paul and James
Yeah,
and see
yeah.
what they think, okay? All right, so...
Looking at what, an iPad?
Yeah, now this is... basically, I'm not playing the sound because I don't want the robot to shut us down.
Right.
But it's a song, right? That's why they have the little musical notes.
yeah, but right,
So look, this gigantic press machine is crushing all of these things like a trumpet and a piano
Right.
and all these things. And then that's the iPad.
yeah. So everything's in there.
Everything's in there, but what people are saying, creative people are saying, I wrote this to Pam. I wanted to get her opinion on this.
Yeah,
Is Apple, you blew it. You're sending your intentional message, but you're sending an unintentional message. And here's what creative people are complaining about. So let me tell you, I'll go back to us here in the studio. This is what people have said. Okay. All right, so they're saying things like this. Apple, the unintentional message of this ad is the destruction of the human experience, courtesy of Silicon Valley.
wow.
Another person said, this is a good example of technology crushing the life of a nostalgic sort of joy used by the materials from former times. And another person said, yeah, Apple, you're delighting in crushing the arts. The backlash was so fierce that the head of Apple made a public announcement that he's sorry that they approved the ad.
Wow. You know what? They did a parody of the ad. I think it was on Stephen Colbert, where they put all these people on that squasher thing,
Yeah.
and they squashed it, and the blood came like out on the instead of the paint, it was blood, and then they. I don't know.
Do you agree with
I
the
don't like-
criticisms of the commercial?
Yeah, I don't like the commercial. I thought I wasn't really putting words to it, but I thought it was destructive. I didn't like the destructiveness of the commercial.
How about you, James? Do you think that the commercial had an unintentional meaning that it was sending?
Well, as you know, I'm a conspiracy-minded person, so I would say that they were trying to get one over, and too many people noticed it.
So you
they
think-
wanted to send that message. We are crushing the arts.
We are definitely replacing many things.
Replace it, yeah. Let's face it, technology is replacing many things. And speaking of...
That's not what I got out of it.
What did you
Okay.
get out of it, Paul? That's not. It's tough to call on you because your face isn't on.
yeah,
the
we
thing.
just see your photos and not your face.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so it looks like what I got out of it. I understand AI is happening and all that stuff, but what I got out of it was it took all that stuff, it crushed it, and it put it into the iPad,
Yeah.
and it's available there. So you can access it all. You don't need to see it
I-
in real.
I think that's what they thought they were saying.
Right. Well, that's what I got out of it. But I mean, I don't agree. Like with all this AI stuff and with photography and all that. I mean, there's so much stuff that's getting passed off as real photography. It's ridiculous already. It's
Yeah.
like the AI. I can tell when it's AI and it's
Usually
not,
has too many fingers.
or whatever. I mean, it's so unreal looking. I mean, there are unreal looking creatures that you probably never seen before, and you wouldn't know it. But when they take typical animals and create them AI or
Yeah.
people, it's like you can just tell. It's.
Yeah.
But that's where it's going. That's the future.
There's actually a scandal at the moment because there are now multiple AI girls on OnlyFans making bank. There's one making $11,000 a month.
She's not even real.
It's an AI.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's just
There you go.
voyeur type stuff that
Right.
people do.
Somebody has a program that's making such a credible looking woman that they're
Yep.
able to use their AI to pose this avatar and
Right.
make $11,000 a month
Yep.
on
That's wild.
OnlyFans.
So you would say that's a bad use of AI?
I wouldn't say it's a bad use, but
Really?
Well, you
the thing about it is,
think about the fools that fall for it.
Well, but the thing is, it's getting the job done, right? Why do people watch OnlyFans? I mean, it's all
Well,
about.
absolutely.
It's all about.
Yeah. How much of porn is fantasy already?
Right. It's.
well, as the person with soggy knees here, I just have to point out there's not an understanding by most people over why OnlyFans works, as opposed to say the old Playboy or Hustler. Those were straight fantasies
Right.
because you didn't even have the name of the model because they always gave some phony name.
yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
OnlyFans is actually an avatar of a relationship. What these guys are buying is not, naked pictures of women. You get that for free on Google, for Christ's
Yeah, but
sakes.
isn't it like video? It's video of women doing things, right?
It's everything. It's
Interactive.
It's instant message conversations. It's
Yep.
FaceTime direct communication. It's I'm doing a photo set today. of me at this particular beach or this particular park. And if you pay enough money, I might even meet you in the real world.
Oof.
That is what makes OnlyFans, because
Right.
you get to basically buy yourself some modicum of a relationship
Wow.
with a real
That's really
person.
sad.
Which is why this avatar making $11,000 a month is screwing with the program, because it's doing it by fooling people into thinking this is a real person. And there is no possibility of you meeting this person in the way that you would most of the other people on the
But
platform.
on OnlyFans, how often would you actually get to meet that person? I mean, isn't that
Well,
like
it's about your same possibility of meeting any random celebrity that you might see on TV. But they're buying interaction with these people.
right?
OnlyFans will charge something like $3.99 to do a direct message with someone.
$3.99 or
$3.99.
Okay.
Now, I can't pay $3.99 and send them instant message to Taylor Swift and actually
Yeah.
have
Right.
a back and forth with her.
Yeah.
But I can find a girl on OnlyFans that, for whatever reason, I'd say, that's the one. And,
Talk to her.
right.
wow.
I don't. Obviously, I had only a sketchy notion of what OnlyFans was. So I appreciate the education.
It's
My
sketchy
pleasure.
for sure.
Yeah.
On YouTube, somebody with a high knowledge of how to use AI, might even be an engineer himself. He's launched a channel, and tell me if this is a good use of AI or not a good use. Mao Zedong did not speak English,
Okay.
but his speeches were recorded.
Right.
He plugs the Chinese version of the recording into AI, and he says to AI, if Mao could speak English, play for me what that speech would look like, would sound like. So you get to hear Mao's voice saying what he said, like at the Fourth Chinese International Congress,
Yeah.
but he's speaking in English with a Chinese accent.
That's kind of interesting.
He's done this with Hitler, and he's done this with Che Guevara. All the people who you could never really hear what it was they said.
Yeah, it was always
Because like Fidel Castro gave 4-hour speeches. I've never been able to find a single one. All right? But
Yeah.
I bet you it's going to appear on this guy's site.
Yeah, that isn't. I think it's interesting. I
They
mean,
do that with music too. They take a person from say they take Bob Hope and they have him sing AC/DC in Bob Hope's voice, right? And it's weird because he'll sing it like he's Bob Hope, but it'll be the AC/DC
well,
lyrics.
that's entertaining, but I think this is
Well, yeah,
more
but that's-
educational.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Well, most
What do you
people
think, James?
Most people say that if you translate those speeches, they don't have the same effect, because these people
right.
relied mostly on their cult of personality and charisma. And when you translate these speeches, you don't come across with the same thing.
But if you see the person giving the speech and they're speaking in the language that you can understand, that comes across that dynamism. No, am I saying that right?
Well, it could be something.
Dynamicism.
It could be something similar to the Jerry Lewis phenomenon in France. Jerry Lewis was this really big thing in France, but all of his movies were dubbed, and at some point there was a contract dispute, and the voice actor who had done all of his translations quit over a pay dispute. So they replaced this person with someone else, and the popularity went down the toilet.
Oh, that's interesting.
Huh. That is interesting. So it was the person's interpretation of what Jerry Lewis was.
And his delivery.
In the one book I'm listening to, the Covenant of Water, which I do not recommend. this author kills somebody every 5 pages, and it's getting on my nerves. But I'm involved with the characters now. But in the book, there's a it's a part of India where the people are Christian. They have a history. They say that oh oh well, it's over. Anyway, he was translating something that a preacher was saying, and he was translating it wrong, just to what the people wanted to hear. Goodbye, everyone. It was lovely seeing you all again, and we will be back in 2 weeks. Next week is Greg's show, How to Emotionally Satisfy a Woman.
Alrighty.
Okay, Fade to Black is gone. What the hell happened to it? There it is.